We would like to thank our registration partner, MapMy India, CX Partners Index, Session Partner ShipLight, Silver Partner Petron, Knowledge Partner Supply Chain Labs, and Industry Partner PSG Chamber of Commerce and Industry. My name is Sriraj Deshmukh, and I will be your host for this session. We are now moving on to our next session on innovation to make supply chains resilient and dynamic. I would like to introduce you to the moderator of this session, Mr. Rohit Bhayana, Managing Partner and Co-founder at Loomis Partners. And I would also like to welcome the panelist, Mr. Vineet Agarwal, Managing Director at Transport Corporation of India Limited. Over to you, Mr. Rohit.
Thanks, Shiraj. Appreciate it. Good afternoon, everyone. Hi, Vineet. What a pleasure being here with you. I love the title, Innovation to Make Supply Chain Dynamic and Resilient. For the larger part of supply chain learnings, I think dynamism and real resilience kind of went as a compromise you would make. You would either be resilient or you would be dynamic, and it was fairly accepted to be one or the other. I think the one of pandemic is that it's almost forced us into not being able to make that decision. The decision is made for us. We need resilience, that's a given. We need to be dynamic. The agility is almost a demand. So I don't think we could have had a better person to have this conversation with than Vineet. Vineet is the Managing Director of Transport Corporation of India. Vineet also is the current President of ASSOCHAM. As an operator, as a leading player in the industry, as Transport Corporation of India, he sees both sides. I think Vineet, few people would see a large corporate from as a client, as what they're struggling it or what the demands are, as well as the whole value chain, including all the way to innovative startups and how those innovations are being absorbed by the large corporates or not being absorbed or the challenges thereof. So I think I'm going to just start off with that. That was my thought process of as we today look at supply chain, it's almost synonymous with operations, and it cuts across industries. It's everywhere. Supply chain is the food and grocery in our homes in today's time. It's the medicines coming in. It's also the industrial goods we're consuming. It's everything. It's practically everything. It's the whole value chain. For large companies, they have created supply chain as massive variabilized assets. Well, variabilized later, but assets first. And now they're variabilizing that. For small and medium companies, it's always been variabilized. How are you, as Transport Corporation of India, sitting right in the middle? How are you seeing the world having changed in these last 18 months from the change that's happened with the pandemic? Give us some feelers, give us some leading indicators on how are you smelling these changes?
Thanks, Rohit, and thanks, IAMAI, to get us on board today. It's a pleasure to be here, and I look forward to sharing some insights as well as also learn from everyone during this conference. So, the all supply chains went through a quite a chaotic and it was basically havoc in the last year and a half. In the first wave, it was more of a supply side issue where factories were shut down. So we had issues in terms of material reaching to clients and or rather reaching for the demand. And in the second wave, it was more for the other side, which was the demand side. So demand side got affected, though a lot of factories were open. In the first wave, supply chains were completely disrupted, and second wave, the supply chain still continued humming to some extent. Let's not forget there were also lots of other things that were happening. If you remember the Suez Canal issue, I think now it seems like it was so long back, but it was in this last 15 months. And that disrupted supply chains majorly. And even today, as we speak, the floods in China, the impact on semiconductors not available for a variety of industries is playing issues with supply chains with both on the demand side and the supply side. So I think the very clear imperative is now that supply chains need to be very dynamic. They have to move away from predictability because predictability in the past was essentially efficiency. If I'm efficient, I'm predictable, and vice versa. So that was really going to the least cost denominator, as in highest efficiency for the least cost. Now that is changing. I think a lot of companies are now saying that we cannot really we cannot create predictability. We need to move to adaptability. We need to be, instead of just in time, we need to be just in case. We don't want to lose sales, but we don't want to also lose our suppliers. So the dynamism has really crept in into all supply chains. I think the fact that today, if I had in the past, if I had a globally distributed supply chain, that was great. I mean, I could get the lowest cost, the best quality from all over the world, which means I had a very wide supply chain. I think now the discussion is, how do we go deep? How can supply chains be? Can I know not just my immediate supplier, but the next year, and the next year as well? So that I'm able to see if that fourth tier is having an issue, how is it going to impact me? So instead of looking at a wide supply chain, we're talking about deep supply chains, possibly even moving towards more domestic supply chains versus global supply chains, so that I have a better visibility, I have a lower transit time, TAT time, as they say, TAT, so that I'm able to be more responsive. So these are some of the broad changes from dynamic and adaptable supply chains to definitely more deep supply chains in terms of trends.
Got it, Vinny. No, very, very useful. And this whole thing you said about predictability being fundamentally efficiency versus, if I just use a different word, effectiveness. Because everything else, agility coming from going tiered, like you said, just not limiting yourself to your tier one supplier, but going down to the nested tier three, tier four supplier. So balancing efficiency and effectiveness doesn't come natural. I'm sure you're seeing examples where some, and you don't have to name the companies, but some are playing it very well and some are not. And where are the ones who are playing well? Where are they playing offense? And where are the ones who are not playing so well? Where are they struggling with?
So the other side of the story, and that sort of might answer your question indirectly, is the fact that consumer trends are also changing. So consumer
Right.
trends are not so direct and not so predictable as it was in the past. It's clearly because there's lockdowns. I cannot go out and buy something, so I need to move to a different channel, and that most obvious different channel is the online channel. So a lot of companies that had an omni-channel strategy, perhaps 2 years, 3 years, 4 years hence, have now made to change that into implementing an omni-channel strategy now, which means that I need to have a different kind of thinking around how I manage my inventory. There is an example of, and this is pre-pandemic in the US. You must have heard of a company called Home Depot, and so Home Depot about 5, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, launched their online store as well, or 10 years ago, something like that, and the online store warehouse was and there was a storm coming on the eastern coast of the US, and the warehouse was about 200 miles west of, let's say, New York. When the storm was coming in New York, the all the shovels from the store were all sold out, and the same shovels 200 miles on that is available on the on the website was showing a discount. So so the availability of that inventory, the visibility of the inventory did not exist, and that's where the companies have started to realize, if I have different channels that I'm servicing and I'm creating separate inventory for them, it would mean that I won't have a visibility, and I won't be as adaptable when things change. So when consumers go back to shopping on the street, I will there be inventory available? So these are very simplistic trend. I mean, not simplistic, but I would say complex trends that are happening. But the solutions are not that complicated. It's more simpler, where you are able to essentially create that thought process that I need to build a supply chain which is catering to these things. So there are some companies who are doing excellent in this, and there are some companies who are certainly struggling, and also some of it because their own supply chains have been disrupted quite badly, where demand has not been there, or if it's a paints company, for example, I cannot get my house painted because I don't want anyone to come in right now.
Understood. Understood. So, Vineet, is there, if you go a notch deeper and you took that example about demand visibility, shovels running out in a physical store and the warehouse perhaps for digital fulfillment 200 miles west being oversupplied and therefore running discounts. Now, demand visibility has existed for a very long time. Control towers, technology exists. Innovation is there. It's something which has been there for a while. So even if I don't go into the very sophisticated technology that's coming in today's time, ledgers, blockchain ledgers, authentication, virtual, ability to inspect and procure accordingly, even if I keep that aside and I go back to the basics of doing business in a value chain, what's held back companies from, when they look at their omni-channel, from truly making it omni-channel, but versus making omni-channel as a just-in-case thing? So where is that being truly driven by a philosophy that we want to go to customer in all possible channels versus saying, oh, we are a physical company and therefore for us the digital ability to serve is just in case, versus, and another example being, I'm fundamentally a digital company and my physical ability is just in case. How are you seeing that play out?
Well, I think firstly it's the disruption. I think the disruption has been quite varied across industries and quite deep also in some cases. So that has prompted companies then sometimes get into a sort of a like their freeze frame. They don't know, acha, what do I do? So I think that has happened with several companies because the disruption has been quite strong. If you see, the other disruption that happened 4 years ago was the introduction of GST. Now, in that circumstance, customers, our customers, or rather companies, felt that perhaps I need to have less warehouses. But there were some customers who said, "Nee, I have to have the same amount of warehouses because I cannot lose sales. If I'm selling a X soap and the consumer goes to that shop and doesn't find that X soap, she's going to buy that Y soap that's available. I cannot lose sales is hierarchy for me. So for that matter, I will have more warehouses. My supply chain is going to be as complex as it was. But several companies took the other route and said that no, I'm going to service the stores better. I will create more frequency, but I can possibly do it with lesser warehouses because I'll have better visibility. Some companies went to the extent to say, I'll have just one warehouse in the country. I'm going to anyways import everything. And anyways, I'm going to send everything by air. I'll just send it straight to the distributor. So lots of companies went through a huge amount of disruption then. But the pandemic actually created a lot more disruption. So that predictability went down completely. I didn't know what is coming from. Some companies did, but that demand visibility platforms were also not working that well. The second is also a mindset shift, which had to happen with companies. I think we are all going through that in all organizations. With work from anywhere, or even with the fact that there are people who have just completely switched to online. That is a huge mindset shift for organizations. And that's going to take much longer than whatever happens with supply chains.
Yeah. And supply chains, Vineet, fundamentally were always, as I was saying, there was a degree of see and inspect. There was a degree of meet and know. there was a very deep physical contact based dimension to it. Even if I keep paper aside and say that's all digital, digital was enablement, but physical was still relationships, supplier development, contracting, negotiating, all of that. I'm sure you're right now seeing some of the most amazing disruptions that are happening, which are here to stay. Pick a few trends where you think we have made a permanent shift. It's a new normal. We have made a permanent shift. Obviously, we're seeing omni-channel, D2C, all of that, offline going online, online going offline. But what else do you think is now here to stay for good?
So yes, certainly omni-channel D2C, direct to consumer, is something that's it's a big trend. Again, D2C is very, very interesting because a lot of D2C companies are saying that, look, I don't need to have excess inventory. I am just going to have only that much that I think I can sell, which means that even if I go out of stock, it doesn't matter. It actually creates more demand for my product. So the concept around D2C, so that's a big mindset shift for traditional organizations that, acha, I'm not going to have any inventory. So let it go out of stock. And then on the omni-channel side, also, I think it's moved towards e-commerce is more or less like it's a frictionless world. The example I gave you of the consumer going to the shop, and if she doesn't find the soap, she buys another one. Today, I can move from one online commerce company to the other very easily to buy something. So it's absolutely frictionless. The other hardcore stuff that's happening is things like multimodal. Companies are moving more and more to other modes of transport other than road. So you're seeing a big trend towards rail, big trend towards coastal shipping, because consumers are not just wanting to see lower cost, but also green logistics. That how can you, as a company, giving me a product that has the lowest carbon emission? So it's an early trend, but it is a trend that is quite visible. It has started to happen and actually really good for our country because we need to make this change towards multimodal. The other is, of course, any kind of digital transformation exercise. I think that has accelerated in all companies. The fact that somebody had a plan for the next 5 years, I think they're talking about doing it in the next 1 or 2 years. So these are some clear trends. Of course, the other ways of running logistics is changing with more platforms available, more analytics available. I think a lot of these things are moving to the hygiene category, where tracking related stuff and digital analytics are given.
Yeah. I think you said it well. I think a lot is moving to the hygiene category, and that's kind of almost now, if I call it like an infrastructure or a utilitarian model. Vineet, what is still technology and innovations which are not utilitarian, which are, take some examples for us, some cutting edge innovation which you're seeing, some new examples of tech innovation you've seen, which have stood out tremendously, and you're seeing rather viral adoption of those.
It's surprising, but and this is a very, very small thing, but things like biometric attendance. We all used to go and do the biometric attendance, but we cannot do that anymore. So things like these basic things, attendance related things, in invoicing, the small payments, these have all moved to digital level. Today, in our company, for example, if we have 1,400 offices. Now, how do I ensure that the person who is in a small town in, let's say in Madurai, is when he goes to the office, his attendance is getting recorded. So we have made a geofence that when he gets to the office, then his attendance gets marked. Now, these are small trends. Even companies are now actually legally forced to do e-invoicing. So though the trend is still picking up, but that will have an impact on your cash flows, on the way that you process things, on the other costs. There used to be a boy in the office, acha, you bill deke aa jao, or you collect the payment, or all these things are going to disappear. digital payments, basic digital payments. So I think very, very small and fundamental changes are started to happen, which we always thought, this is not going to happen so soon. So it's not cutting edge, but it's definitely, I would say, they at
More
that stage
fundamental.
and having a real impact. The cutting edge stuff is still under discussion, I would say, like drones, for example, and that too for distribution of medicines, etc., is something that is now caught on quite a lot. We've also seen other things like companies talking about robotics more in warehouses, though it's
Right.
still early days. Um, uh, Control tower related predictive software is increasing a lot more. But the data points have been very skewed there because because of this disruptions that has been happening. So you don't have a clear model that have been created everywhere. So I would think that these are some areas. I think the bleeding edge stuff, the one that's really really cutting edge. I mean, above cutting edge, the bleeding edge is not there yet.
Yeah, yeah. Got it. Vineet, I'm going to switch gears a bit. I'm going to come into some questions we've been receiving from the audience. And I have a few more I want to ask you, but I'll keep those for the end. So I'll go with the first question, which is, has COVID-19 resulted in any sort of change in the competitive structure of logistics management due to the considerable changes with the pandemic? So has the competitive environment changed?
Yes, I think so. I think the competitive environment is getting oriented more and more towards larger companies, and the smaller companies becoming suppliers to the larger companies. The logistics industry as a whole in the country is very, very fragmented. And for that, the consolidation cannot happen by acquisitions or mergers, but it can happen where the smaller companies are working as suppliers to the larger guys. And that started to happen already. The other thing is that clearly companies that had taken a lot of debt, had overexpanded themselves, have not done well at all, and they've struggled. So I think the broader issue is that yes, the competitive landscape has become definitely become has compressed to some extent, but the new age companies that are coming in are not going directly into the market. Some of them are, but they are coming with a lot of money, so that is disrupting certain aspects of the business. But I think it has to be seen as to how they will behave and what will be the impact.
Got it. Got it. And from just taking your example as PCI, you have, in a way, this is good time for you. You have advantage both ways. You're a large operator, and therefore it gives you that opportunity with consolidation. But also it gives you that ability to absorb a lot of new company innovation, where for those companies, getting some real use cases through a large operator like you get very powerful. It gets a real market validation.
It has helped, and certainly I think a lot of the smaller companies have also got a lot of benefit because earlier they had payment issues with other companies when they were dealing directly. Today they get the payments on time. They are able to leverage some of technology that we are giving them through supplier portals, etc. So I think it has started to help the other companies, vendors as well.
Got it. Got it. Thanks, Vineet. The next question, I think you answered earlier, but I'll just state the question. It was around whether we would go back to whether we'll go back to the old way of business, or will we stay in the new normal. I think you and I discussed that. I'm going to jump to the third question, which is, in your opinion, Vineet, which areas of logistics, so warehousing, financial supply chain, which areas of logistics will you see, or do you expect the next big disruption, both in terms of cost and resilience?
I don't see any one area. I think there's scope in every area, and there's something or the other happening everywhere. If I say procurement is going to be disrupted, it is already getting disrupted. If I say the supply side is getting disrupted, it is. Multimodal is coming in, warehousing is growing. So that there are all these. I think logistics as an industry itself has so much potential in our country. that we are seeing that there will be something or the other happening for the next decade, if not more.
Yep. Vineet, one thing I'm going to ask you, because you're a big warehousing player. Talk about warehousing. What are you seeing in warehousing? What new innovations are you seeing in warehousing? Other than robotics, obviously, that we all are seeing.
Yeah. In warehousing, one or two things that we've seen specifically with our clients is in the FMCG space or even in the QSR space, that they want a combination of a cold storage and a dry storage together. They're saying that if I need to service clients, service my stores or service any location, I need to supply both cold and dry together. I need to have that capability. So there's definitely trends there. There are trends towards better energy management, especially in areas where there is a energy issue. For example, in Gurgaon or other places where there's a lot of power cuts. So how do I reduce my energy cost since you also operate diesel gensets in many of these places? So not only is it a pollution issue, but also it's a cost issue. Definitely trends towards more cubic foot utilization. So instead of square foot utilization, so we've got, there's an example of a company that came to us with asking for 50,000 square foot of space, and we redesigned their flow through so that we are able to do that in 36,000 square feet with more cubic foot utilization. So that the company really appreciated, and so I think that's a big trend now towards cubic foot utilization. And of course, the quality of warehouses are changing. They are not the go downs as they used to be, but much more better in terms of all, whether it is the materials that are used or the net result of it is far better.
Got it. Thanks. Vineet, one more question. What are the regional discrepancies? I like this, very specific. What are the regional discrepancies you're seeing in logistics management in India?
So India is not a equally distributed country from a consumption as well as from a production perspective. If you see how GDP is generated in the country and you draw a line straight, this part of the country, which is the western part of the country, is where possibly 60 to 70% or even more of the GDP is generated. So when that happens, the logistics also changes. Just to give you a very simple example, if I am manufacturing, if I'm transporting cars from Gurgaon to eastern part of India, I'm not getting cars back. So clearly there is a disparity in the region. What is that traffic that's coming back? It's not the value added traffic, it's more of the volume traffic. So clearly there is a discrepancy in the way that logistics would be in let's say the eastern part of the country, where I would construct the market more from a consumption perspective rather than from a production perspective. So I think that's where, and we see that in different pockets in the country. We clearly see that in the eastern part of the country. So there is that nationally there is that issue with demand and supply not being uniform across.
Yeah. No, thanks, Vineet. This is great. I just in the wrapping. So we're kind of at the end of the time, but in the wrapping, I love the way you kind of took us from the first wave when supply was there, first wave when demand was there, second wave when supply was there, to the fact that today, when we look at demand planning, there's so much of supply calibration to it. Obviously, we have a ton of innovations, but I think the biggest thing I'm taking away is that our fundamental environment is so much more constrained. It's constrained with lockdowns. It's constrained with macros. It's constrained with supplies. It's constrained in every which way, which obviously are affecting pricing, margin compression or opportunity expansion both coming in together. And therefore, if anything, this perhaps is a time when one cannot even get into this debate whether we are dynamic or resilient. It can't be. If one has to be in business from a supply chain perspective, you need complete agility without compromising on the rigor and the resilience. So thanks so much, Vineet. This was wonderful. Pleasure to chat with you as always, and appreciate the time. Thanks everyone in the audience. Shiraj, over to you.
Thank you, Rohit.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for an engaging discussion, and a special thanks to both of you for being here with us today and making this possible. Another thanks goes out to all our attendees who are here with us today. Thank you so much, everyone, and we'll be back in a while with the next session. Please stay tuned.
Thank you.